Hey everyone, and welcome back to Product Training with Blue Triangle. Today we're going to talk about the Blue Triangle AMP integration. And if you're not familiar, AMP stands for Accelerated Mobile Pages. Alright, so my name is Mark, and I'm the support manager here at Blue Triangle, and we do these trainings each week about a variety of topics, all related to web performance, analytics, ultimately how to use Blue Triangle to solve problems. So let's go ahead and get started. For the agenda today, I don't anticipate this is going to be one of our longer sessions, but what we're going to cover is a little bit of background on AMP. What is it, its origins, and then we'll get into the integration with Blue Triangle. Obviously, the integration is to enable the Blue Triangle analytics from AMP pages. That's still not making much sense. We'll get into a little more about AMP here in a second, and then we'll demo how the integration works and kind of walk through the steps that you'll need to take to configure the integration. The last thing is Q&A. So if there's any questions that come up while we're going through things today, be sure to shoot those into the chat or the questions window, and we'll answer those toward the end. Alright, so AMP stands for Accelerated Mobile Pages, and it's an open source project by Google. The idea here is to optimize mobile web experience. This kind of centers around SEO and better experience. Faster pages mean lower bounce rates, higher conversions. So the goal here is optimization of mobile web pages. And the way this is done is with restrictions on the use of JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. And I won't get into all the nerdy details about it, but be sure to check out the amp.dev site if you're interested in learning more. I included a link here that you can go to that has a good kind of high-level description of how AMP works and what is kind of the thinking behind putting it together. All right, so that's at a high level what AMP is. Now, the integration with Blue Triangle, due to the restrictions that AMP pages put on JavaScript, you can't just put the Blue Triangle JavaScript tag on an AMP page. It just doesn't work that way. So the integration with AMP that Blue Triangle has enables the Blue Triangle analytics for pages that are running on AMP. So over to the right here, we can see if you're on the amp.dev website and you go under documentation, you can actually see that we are listed as one of the analytics vendors, and it shows the attribute value, and we'll get into kind of what that is as we demo the integration here in just a minute. And then it links over to more information in our help center, and that documentation for the AMP integration is going to be in our help center at help.bluetriangle.com. And what we're going to do here now is basically run through this documentation. It's more of a kind of a guide. In addition to being documentation, it's also kind of a guide, and we're just going to follow along with a simple demo website and watch how the integration works. Alright, so let's get into the demo. Okay, so I'm going to pull up a few different things here. I'm going to pull up a web browser, and here is the documentation. So again, it's I'll just show you how to get there. So this is our help center at help.bluetriangle.com, and to get to the documentation, you can simply go to the big documentation button, and under integrations and data portability, you'll see the AMP integration information. So click on that one, and you'll see that there's a few sections here, the requirements, kind of what you need to specify in the HTML to get this to work. And then there's an example down here that we'll walk through as well. So what I'm going to do actually is set up I've kind of staged this, and I'm going to kick off a web server on my local host. And to do that, ironically, I'm using XAMPP. Kind of the name is a little ironic, but anyways, so I'm going to start Apache, and that's going to turn on my local host. And so I have a demo HTML web page here. It just says hello world. This is a demo web page, right? And that's in the correct folder and everything. I also, to make it a little more interesting, I set a host file entry to call my local host at 127.0.0.1 markhdemo. So all of that to say, we can go to markhdemo/demo.html. All right. I'm going to open up the DevTools here as well. Don't worry about that. I think that I have some browser extensions in the background here. So we have a demo web page, right? And we're going to turn it into an AMP page, and then ultimately enable the Blue Triangle integration to collect analytics, right? So let's go back over to the documentation, and under the first section here under requirements, it says basically put all of this in the head of the page. Now, you may be wondering what this stuff actually is. I won't get into the nitty-gritty specifics, but essentially this AMP boilerplate thing. This is basically required for any AMP web page. Same with the thing below. This is essentially the AMP library, the cdn.ampproject.org. And then lastly, the AMP analytics thing here this is needed to get any analytics integration working. So this is all the logic that goes into handling the integration. You can also specify this, you probably don't need to know this, but this opt-in parameter here, you can either set it to stable, which is the latest stable build, or you can set it to nightly. Setting it to nightly, depending on where our team is on developing this, you'll be able to get the latest updates. If we're ever making any updates or improvements, enhancements, or any changes, you can set it to nightly and get that kind of beta build maybe for your for testing purposes. But in most cases, stable is the default, and we're just going to go with that. You actually don't even need to specify it, but just for the sake of explaining what that is. All right, so I'm going to just copy all of this. I'm going to go copy, and I have my website code right here under demo, and under the head I'm just going to specify those few things there. Let's tab. I got my tabs all messed up. Tab, tab, tab. Okay. Okay, so we're all set. So theoretically now, if I refresh the page, this is now an AMP page. And you can actually see this little console log here saying powered by AMP. All right. So we're rocking and rolling now. So what's next? Now we're going to specify this AMP Analytics HTML tag, and the type here is going to be Blue Triangle, and that's what the documentation was referring to earlier. That the attribute is Blue Triangle. So this thing is basically just a JSON object, and it's going to specify the details of the web page for the analytics collection, right? So there's a vars object and an extra URL params. The vars are going to be essentially the required parameters. That would be site ID, page name, page type, and traffic segment. So these things are all going to need to go inside of the vars in the JSON here. And then optional parameters. This would include things like, AB segments, data center, custom numbers or custom variables, marketing campaign, customer session ID, things like that. All right, so in the example here, we just have the AMP Analytics JSON script defined here. And this is just some demo data. And I'm going to collect this and just copy and paste that into my page. And then we're going to change a few of the options. All right. So vars, site ID, page name, traffic segment. We'll see if I can. So site ID. This is the site ID, and so my site ID in this case is this right here. Now we're going to call this. The page name is demo page. We can say prod, sure, and page type. So page name, page type, and traffic segment. These are all the typical kind of filter options and attributes of a page view in Blue Triangle. So we're going to set all of those as like so. And then we can kind of do anything we want here. The AB segment is prod A. The data center is US. We're going to say this is the custom number. This is custom number 2, custom number 3, a couple of custom variables as well, and a customer session ID down here, and a campaign, marketing campaign. So for each page, you'll just need to specify the details that you want to collect for Blue Triangle, right? So this is saved now. So theoretically, the next time I load the page, we should collect the AMP information. And it looks like my script is bogus JSON given this console error here. So I'm going to go check that, double check that. We'll see here. That. Am I missing a comma somewhere? Yep, I'm missing a comma right here. As a matter of fact, I copied that from the documentation, so I'll have to fix that. Oh yeah, we'll fix that, so you don't have that problem as well. All right, so I'm gonna just save that and refresh the page. And you may notice that it's kind of a little quirk. You may need to go to a tab and come back to it. And what we see here is this btt.gif, and this actually has all of the data for this AMP page, and it should have all of that demo data that we've configured in the JSON here. All right, so I'm just going to hit the page a couple of times. There's 3. There's a 4th one. So pretty soon here, we should be able to log into Blue Triangle and see that data. So we'll be looking for the demo page. with all of these other characteristics. All right, so I'm going to log in to my MarkH demo account, and so for demo purposes, we'll just go to real user monitoring. We'll just go to the the performance detail page, and there we go. It looks like we can see we have 2 page views that have come in already. And if we drill down, we can see in the scatter plot some more information about that. So here's our demo page that we just loaded, and here are the details. So we see, a 0.38 second onload time, and ultimately all of the Blue Triangle analytics. Here's the URL hit. All of the Blue Triangle analytics are going to be available as a typical page view from any other web page. All right, so that is a quick demo of the AMP integration. So now I'm gonna pause and look at the questions and see if there's anything I can help answer for you guys. All right, so I see a couple of questions here, and I'll go ahead and get started with those. And meanwhile, feel free to shoot your questions into the chat or the questions window, and I'll do my best to answer those for you. All right, so the first one I see here is, do we get all of the same data with this integration as the normal Blue Triangle tag? Yeah, that's a great question. So the answer is yes. We get most of the same data with as the normal Blue Triangle tag. Currently, we are not collecting the resource or object level detail data. So that is one thing. There's also a couple of metrics, for example, total blocking time, certain things that we are not going to be able to collect, like with total blocking time, there's virtually no JavaScript running, so it's difficult to get that metric. And I think there's maybe 1 or 2 other examples, and if I can definitely send out a comprehensive list of what's collected and what's not collected. But I think what you'll find is the majority of the metrics are going to be available with this. All right. The next question is, why do you have to go to a separate tab and then come back for the analytics beacon to fire? Yeah, that's another really good question. So the way I understand it is we load on the visibility event from AMP, and that means you may need to switch tabs and go back and then click the page for that event to trigger. I think that's more so for this really basic demo site that I put together. I think if there was more content and more fully fleshed out web page, we wouldn't need to do that. It's kind of just a quirk of the super basic demo that I put together. All right. So I think that is the last question. So just to kind of wrap things up here, we really appreciate your time, everyone, today. And if you do have any more questions, we're always happy to speak with you offline. So feel free to reach out to us anytime. You can reach us at any of the emails listed here. Support, of course, is support@Blue Triangle or bluetriangletech.com. Either of those will work. And you can also go over to our help center and submit a request or a question at help.bluetriangle.com. All right, guys, thanks again for your time, and we look forward to seeing you all next time. Have a great rest of your day.